to Review, the show where we examine all of the spiciest takes on the hottest release from the world of movies and TV this week. I'm Terry Beezer for ScreenRant. It's great to be here with you, where we're going to be collecting the box office data, your essential questions and comments, and chatting to a ScreenRant expert about the final instalment from the Venom franchise, Venom The Last Dance. And if you've already seen the movie, be sure to leave us a 6-word review in the comments below. You've only got 6 words, make them count. Venom The Last Dance then. I'm actually taking on the voice of the character there. I don't know what's going on. Venom The Last Dance, directed by Kelly Marcel and once again starring Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and Venom. This is the third and final movie from Sony's Venom franchise. I know, let's try not to be too sad about it. This time out, Eddie Brock is on the run from murderous beings from outer space that in truth bear more than a little resemblance to the aliens from Starship Troopers. A Sci-Fi reference for the kids there, straight out of the 1990s. Start as we mean to go on, it's nice to meet you. Eddie and his symbiote partner are forced to deal with the news that they are carrying the Codex inside of him. Whatever, I don't know. The Codex is an intergalactic homing beacon that is being hunted by the entity known as the King in Black, the Thanos-level planetary threat that is Null. In truth, it feels as though the battle lines have been drawn on Venom at this point. Either you find amusement at Venom turning into a fish, a frog, a horse, an alpaca, an alpine goat, a sloth, and an aardvark, and you can't get enough of Eddie Brock's ability to knock someone out from distance with a croc, or you have decided that this cannibalistic superhero buddy cop duo is beneath you. Taking that into account, why has it taken such a massive dip at the box office this time around then? Because the Venom movies have always traditionally performed pretty well. In fact, pretty well is selling it short. Looking at public reaction, the first 2 Venom movies both have a solid cinema score of B+, and after its opening weekend, Venom The Last Dance has a pretty respectable score of B-. That's not an enormous drop-off from those first 2 Venom movies, so it's not as if word of mouth has been killing Venom The Last Dance in the way that we've seen with Joker 2 Folie à Deux or Madam Web this year either. And critics have kind of famously always been at odds with the audience when it comes to all things Venom, with Venom receiving a score of 30% and its sequel faring slightly better but still landing a pretty dire score of 57%. All that being said, it's hard to believe that Venom The Last Dance having a 37% rating from 127 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes would have had much sway on audiences on this particular movie. Anyway, so let's delve into those box office numbers. First up, all 3 of Sony's Venom movies have opened in October, with the first movie breaking all domestic records with an opening of $80.3 million. That is a record take for October, or it was, when it actually beat the record that was set by Gravity. Venom Let There Be Carnage then set a new record for October by surpassing the first movie and taking $90.1 million. So, as has widely been reported this weekend, Venom The Last Dance has taken $51 million domestically, replacing Smile 2 at the top spot and with the 11th biggest opening of 2024 so far, but that is a bit of a leap to sell that as a positive, and it is significantly below its projected $65 million and the gross and expectations set by the previous 2 Venom movies. Venom The Last Dance then has significantly the lowest opening of the Venom franchise, with only Madam Web, Morbius and Into the Spider-Verse releasing with lower opening weekends when it comes to non-MCU related Spider-Man movies. That means each of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies and both Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies opened higher than Venom The Last Dance, as did Across the Spider-Verse, which had the second biggest opening beginning of last year. Only Super Mario Bros. Had a higher opening weekend than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in the whole of 2023, and I know what you're thinking, we're all going to hell and none of us can do anything about it. ScreenRant's comic book editor will be joining us shortly to answer your questions and comments about Null and the future of Venom, but first, here's what we had to say about Venom The Last Dance on ScreenRant.com. After reviewing the first two movies and giving a 6 out of 10 rating for Venom and 5 out of 10 for Let There Be Carnage, we have said Venom The Last Dance is easily the best movie of the franchise so far, giving the movie 7 out of 10 and praising the charm and affection that both Marcel and Hardy have for this character. And we also praise the decision to give Venom his flowers in this movie, instead of getting involved with anything Spider-Man related or doing anything radically, or let's be honest, remotely different this time around. Instead, everything leans into what has worked for them so far, and that is accentuating the madcap friendship that exists between man and monster. After all, that is a relationship that can take decapitation and an ABBA dance sequence and have it all make complete sense within the framework of one movie. Something that I didn't know that I needed, but it turns out I've waited my whole life for that to exist. Stick around to see the best letterboxd comments from Venom The Last Dance's opening weekend, and we've got your reviews, but first, here's ScreenRant's Molly Freeman to discuss some of the comments and questions that you've had for us in the community section of the ScreenRant YouTube. Okay, so Cat Scratcher 84C gets us underway by saying, I think an interesting question is why Venom 3 is not getting as good a response as the other two Venom movies. And it's a good place to start because with a cinema score of B-, and objectively, if you've liked the other Venom movies, this is a pretty good Venom movie. Why has there been such a big drop-off at the box office with this movie, Mark?
Well, I think that more speaks to the drop-off of superhero movies in general at the box office. Like, obviously, we had a very big summer with Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, that movie, I did not check, but I know it's over $1 billion.
I am soaking wet right now.
That was the first MCU movie to surpass $1 billion since Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. So I think it's just harder for movies to do really well, superhero movies specifically, to do well at the box office. Even, I know Let There Be Carnage, which is the second movie, came out during, closer to the heights of the pandemic, but I think in this, sort of almost post-pandemic world, superhero movies just are not connecting at the box office as much, which I think, this is my personal feeling, I think people just don't have as much money as they did before the pandemic, so they have to be choosier about what they go see, and unless it's something big like Spider-Man No Way Home or Deadpool and Wolverine, they're just not going to go to the movie theaters for it.
Yeah, and it feels like Deadpool and Wolverine sort of bucked the trend, because it felt like Deadpool's second movie had about a similar response as Venom's second movie. And again, both of the third movies are much better than that, but it seems to have really affected Venom. Do you think there's any burnout on the franchise? Or maybe because the knowledge that Tom Hardy isn't coming back, do you think that has potentially kept people away as well?
I do, especially because this is not the MCU, obviously, this is the Sony Spider-Man universe, which the last two movies were Morbius and Madam Web, which were not great. I don't want to
Very diplomatic, Molly, I like it.
Yeah, I think I reviewed both of them for ScreenRant, so if you want to hear my thoughts or read them, you can. I did not like either of them very much, and I do think that they did not connect with audiences, and I think that kind of impacts Venom a little bit, because this is that franchise. I think people are well aware that that's that franchise, and they have seen two duds, and they don't really want to see another one. Even though the last Venom movie was good, the last two movies in the franchise were bad, so I think that does definitely impact Venom 3.
Yeah, I can see that. Aztec 2012 is the next person to give us something to talk about. He said, I'd like a discussion about the differences between the Venom movies and the source material. What did Sony do right and what could they have done better? And what is the thematic takeaway from this cinematic franchise? And I got to say that seeing the first movie was a pretty disorientating experience as far as, like, what Venom is and what was delivered. Like, I think when I saw that movie for the first time, coming out of the cinema, I was like, I don't think I get it. And then when I watched it, knowing what to expect on my first rewatch, I liked it a lot more. And I feel like if they were to do something better with regards to the source material, I think fleshing out characters like Rex Strickland is used in Venom The Last Dance, and he has a really good arc in the Donny Cates comic run, and like is just a kind of throwaway character here, so they could have done that better. And if there is a real failing of the Venom franchise, I think it's failed its villains. Like, Carnage feels like the massive flop of the series. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't worthy of the source material. But I do like the charm of what they've done with Venom in movie form as kind of a standalone surrealist art experiment. Like, these movies are generally as mad as a Badger's dinner. And Molly, what do you think of when a franchise steps away from its source material in radical and unexpected ways? Because it's not unique to Venom that comic book movies will take a leap from their source material.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not a huge... I haven't actually read any Venom comics. I'm not aware of the comics that much. I know he was in, I think, the Spider-Man animated series when, like, my generation was kids. I know my older brother was like, Venom was so cool in the animated series, and I was like, I have never watched that. So Venom, like the first Venom movie, was my first experience with Venom, and I just saw Tom Hardy get into a lobster tank, and I was like, yeah, no, this is great. I do think Tom Hardy is the big reason why the movies work. I think he and the relationship with Venom between like Venom and Eddie Brock, I think that that's just charming and delightful and super fun. And I don't know how that compares to the comics, but I just think that stands on its own. I do think, obviously, like, you can't ever fully adapt a comic to to movies just because you don't have it's not the same medium, so it's going to be different no matter what. And I do think superhero movies like the MCU, I'm going to keep talking about the MCU, but they don't adapt events exactly, and sometimes that works, like Captain America Civil War. Obviously it's not like a real Civil War, but it's a good movie. Like, people like that movie. I like that movie. Yeah. Secret Invasion was poorly adapted, and it was a bad TV show, and that obviously was not well done. I think what really matters to the movies is that, like, the characters matter, and I think you're right. I think they needed better villains. I think that's a problem across a lot of superhero movies. But Carnage, I remember watching the second movie and being like, I don't really get why people like Carnage so much, because this was super underwhelming. So I definitely get that, and yeah, I think the villains should probably be better. But I mean, we have Null coming, maybe, possibly.
Yeah. What did you make of their use of Null? Because so much of the marketing beforehand, and so much of it in the trailer, and so much in the news in the run up to this movie was about Null. What did you make of their use of Null?
I actually was glad that he wasn't really the main villain of the movie, because as I said, I don't know the comics super well, but I know that he is like Thanos level in terms of like powers and like how much he means to the universe. So I was actually kind of glad that they saved him, like they're saving him for a future movie, right? And so they sort of just gave a lot of teases. I did think it was very funny that a lot of like the setup for Null was people being like, he's so scary, just like telling us straight up like he's scary, and like not really showing us that, which is not great in storytelling, but I think it kind of worked with this one just because you have so many people sort of talking about it, and he's also very creepy. I do think Andy Serkis did a good job playing him, but yeah, I think I'm holding back judgment on Null for now, I think.
Yeah, it's like we had a bunch of comments come in, and one of them was that Zeus Elric 1997 said it felt a lot like Thanos in the earlier movies, more of a cameo than an active role. And we asked you if Venom The Last Dance had failed Null, and 67% of you said yes, 22% of you said no, and 12% of you said, didn't you think it was a tad unnecessary to put a reggae David Bowie cover in this movie? Do you know where they're taking Null beyond this? Because as I said earlier, and as is well known, this is the last of Venom, but the post-credits scene and all of the marketing suggests that there is more to come with Null. Is there any rumours on what they're going to be doing with Null?
I mean, there's always plenty of rumors. There's nothing I would personally put weight behind, just in my experience. I think Sony is keeping their plans close to their chest for now. I think they wanted to see how Venom performs, how people respond to Null, which is both a good and bad thing, because I think the response to this has been mixed. And I think if Marvel had done something similar with Thanos in the early days, they would have pivoted away from Thanos eventually, and we wouldn't have gotten Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So I hope that Sony stays their course, whatever their course is. We don't know. They have another movie coming out this year. Kraven the Hunter comes out in December. Beyond that, we have no idea what's coming. I'm hoping they'll announce it eventually, and maybe we'll learn about what their plans are, but it's possible that they pivot, and that's why they haven't announced anything. But right now, we really don't know what's going to happen.
Do we know anything for Venom moving forward? Because it's the last we've seen of Venom with Tom Hardy in the role, but are there any rumours for Venom beyond this movie that you'd put any kind of credibility in?
No, I wouldn't. Sony has been very good about keeping it close to their chest. I do think that it'll be interesting to see what Spider-Man 4 is going to be in the MCU, and whether Sony and Marvel's partnership is going to lead to any kind of crossover, because I know, and I am also one of those people who really want to see Spider-Man and Venom meet. We haven't seen that since Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire and Topher Grace. Even I would be excited to see that, and that's kind of my only experience with Spider-Man and Venom. So that might happen in Spider-Man 4, but that's just speculation at this point. We really don't know until we learn more about what Spider-Man 4 is going to be about. We can't really know. We do know it's going to come out after Avengers Doomsday, so the assumption is that it's going to deal with the fallout of that, because it comes out, I think, 2 months after Avengers Doomsday. So we, a lot of people I talk to are speculating that it's going to be set on Battle World, which is where Secret Wars is set, and Venom will show up maybe, so maybe that'll happen, but we'll see.
And if an executive turns up with a massive sack of cash outside Tom Hardy's lawn and says, hey, want to do that Venom thing again, do you think there's any chance we see Tom Hardy reprise the role? Because he has so much love for the character, so obviously, I think, in the performances, and he's want to get his hands dirty in terms of the filmmaking on these movies. I don't believe that the door is permanently shut.
No, I mean, as you saw with Robert Downey Jr. coming back, I think Marvel has a way of convincing people. I think if Marvel Studios and Sony have a really great idea for Venom, and especially for Venom meeting Spider-Man, because Tom Hardy hasn't been shy about saying that he would like to face Spider-Man. He said that even recently. So I think if that is the story that's being told, I think they could probably get him back.
That is the sound of a massive exec turning up on Tom Hardy's lawn with a load of cash. Molly, thanks for your time today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Okay, before we get out of here, let's go through the best of the week's Letterboxd reviews. Matt says, not remotely a good movie, not remotely a bad time. I know where you're coming from. Arson Adler says, it's like watching my parents divorce. Justin says, Midnight Run, but make it a gay symbiote rom-com with an ABBA dance sequence and Venom saying ride me cowboy to Eddie after turning into a giant horse. How are you not going to go and see this movie after hearing that? Astro says,
In another life, I would have really liked doing laundry in Texas with you.
And saving the best for last, Emma says end all movies with a montage recapping everything that happened for the last 2 hours. I'm stupid and I can't remember. That's it for review. We can't afford a Maroon 5 montage to play us out, so you'll have to hear me say like and subscribe to the channel and leave us a 6-word review of Venom The Last Dance in the comments section below. I'm Terry Beezer for Screen Rant. Bye for now.